Hello everyone, this is a walkthrough video for my new monthly and annual budget tracker. If you haven't purchased this template, I will leave a link in the description box so you can go ahead and grab your copy. After you purchase this file, the first tab is the instructions tab. Here you can find my contact information as well as a detailed step-by-step guide that can help you get started with setting up your template. Before I get started with the tutorial, I want to show you what the template looks like when you purchase it. The first tab would be a setup tab. It will be blank. Some of the parts will be filled, and I will explain this in detail when we get to the demo copy. And here's what the annual table looks like. Here's the annual summary dashboard. It is also blank. And here is what the monthly tab looks like. All of these tabs will be blank when you purchase the template, but then when you start putting in your own information, the graphs and the rest of the tables will be activated. All right, so now I'm going to switch over to the demo copy to show you exactly how it works. Okay, so here we are in the demo copy of this template in the setup tab. I'll give you an overview of the setup tab and I'll show you how it works. It does have built-in features to make the setup process very easy. The setup tab is where you would enter your start date, so the date you want to start using this template, your categories, so the main categories for your finances that you want to organize, income, savings, investment, bills, expenses, subscriptions, and debts. So you have up to 7 categories. You don't have to use all of it, but you do have the option of using all 7 to organize your finances. The setup tab is also where you would enter your budget. So how much you expect to earn for income or expect to spend or save or invest. In addition to that, for things like income, fixed bills, subscriptions, and debt, you can also enter in a due date. So when you expect to receive your salary and when you expect to pay certain bills. Okay, so that being said, the first thing you want to do when you get to the setup tab to make things easy for you is to click this checkbox. This checkbox is going to guide you through the setup process. So if you look at the instructions here, it says check the box to highlight the cell you need to fill in order to set up the template. Now, if I check this box, what happens is that everywhere that I need to either select an option, type an option, will be highlighted. In addition to that, down here we have this checklist, and this is where you will check off the items that you have completed. All right, so the first thing we're going to do now is to select our start date. It automatically shows up as January 2025, but we can change this by double clicking in that space. And let's say we want to start budgeting and using this template in March. So we'll select March 1st. It doesn't matter the day you select as long as you're selecting the correct month and the correct year. I'll go ahead and select March 1st. Okay. And then if I go over to the tabs, what I can now do is move March over to the first tab and make sure that March is selected here. And then go ahead and reselect March 2025 to make sure it shows up correctly. One thing I would caution you though is if you do decide to change this to maybe March 3rd, you have to reselect the name in the tab again. So if I go back here, it's going to give me this error message. So just go ahead and click on that and select March again, and then this should go away. So essentially, once you select the day here, don't change it. But if you do change it, you have to just reselect the month in that box to get rid of the error message. All right. And then the next month would be April. So then just go ahead and move April next to March, and then May, etc. So if you're going to change the order of the month, it's not a problem. All you have to do is ensure that you reorder the tabs here. And then of course, make sure that when you're in that month's tab, reselect the name of the month and the year in this area. Okay, so I'm back to the setup tab and I'm just going to leave it at January for now. And since I have selected my start date, I'm going to go down to my checklist area and check that off. So this is going to guide me through the setup process to make sure that all of the steps are being completed. So I'm going to check this off. And when I check this box, that yellow color disappears. So because the step has been completed. The next is to enter our categories. Now you can enter whatever category you want. However, there are a few things you have to keep in mind. This first one has to be used for income because it's going to affect how the data shows up in the rest of the tabs. So you want to make sure that the first one is always income. Now you can change the order of these tabs right here. However, 2 things I want to point out. These 2 cells, the one that says fixed bills and variable expenses, you can change them. However, try to reserve these 2 cells for categories that have long lists. For each of these categories, you have 10 slots. So you can enter 10 income sources, 10 savings losses, investments, etc. But for 2 of them, so these 2 right here, and I'll scroll over to this side so you can see what it looks like, you can enter up to 15. So this would make sense for categories with a longer list, like fixed bills or variable expenses. The other thing to point out is the income area has a due date, and this would allow you to enter in the day you expect to be paid. In addition to the income section, we also have a long section with a due date. And of course, this makes sense to use for your fixed bills because most bills would have a due date. And there's one more here that has been assigned to subscriptions, but if you want to use this for debts because your debt has a specific due date, you can do that as well. So you have several options to play around. Just make sure that you select the right category based on these several variants. All you need to do is type the name of the category here. I will go ahead and delete these so you see what that looks like. When I delete all of these categories, you can see that the names are deleted here. So I'm going to go ahead and type in income so you can see how it works. So when I type income, it shows up here, and then savings, debts. Okay, it shows up here. So essentially, this is the only section you have to enter the names of the categories. They automatically show up here. Let's assume everything is the way we want it. Go ahead and check that box. The yellow color disappears, and then we can move on to the next item, which is adding our subcategories. So the subcategories are essentially the examples or the names that fit into that category. So for income, it would be things like salary. Maybe if you have a partner, it would be like partner salary, freelance, business, tips, whatever it is. You have 10 slots. Go ahead and type them in. You don't have to use all of them for it to work. Type in the expected amount, so what you expect to earn for your salary, for your freelance, etc. And then put the day you expect to receive this income. Do the same for savings. So type in the different areas that you want to save for. So if you're saving for a down payment for a house, if you're saving for emergency fund, type in how much you want to save for each of them. And as you do this, that this amount increases. All right, so let's type in one more. Let's say honeymoon and type in, so remember this is 775. If I were to type in $1,000, okay, this now goes up to 1,775. So this would automatically update as well. Now, this only has 15 slots for bills and 15 slots for expenses. If you have more than 15, you can move over some of your fixed bills to subscription. So instead of putting things like your subscriptions here, move them over to this section because this has a due date as well. Okay, and then try to consolidate things. So maybe have an option for miscellaneous if you run out of room in this area. So try to make sure you keep it within the confines of the section. Okay, and then once you're done with that step, go ahead and cross it off. And then the color disappears. And if you have typed in your expected amounts and due dates, you can go ahead and cross it off as well. Once you're done with this, you can see right here that the message changes to the setup process has been completed. You can now proceed to the monthly tabs to add your income and expenses. Now, before we go to the monthly tabs, I'm going to quickly show you the annual tab just to tell you that this is not going to be updated. This is a view only tab. And there are some instructions to let you know that you're not going to be adding in information here. This will summarize the information that you've added in to the monthly tabs. The same thing with the annual summary dashboard. You're not going to be adding any information here. This is 100% view only. You come into view a summary of the data you have entered into the monthly tabs. We'll come back to these though. Let's go to the first tab, which is January. Now they're all identical. So when I show you one, you'll know how to use the rest. All right, so we are in the January tab, and the first thing you want to do is to make sure that the month selected here matches the name. This can change based on the start date you select in the setup tab. Make sure that there is no error message here and the name right here matches the name here. There's an error message just because we did change something in the setup tab, so go ahead and reselect January 2025 and the error message goes away. The name of the tab only has to have the name of the month. It doesn't have to have the name of the year to work. As long as this says January 2025 and this says January, the template should work fine. All right, so let's go over the rest of the template. In the second half of this section, you can see expected and actual with amounts. And this is the difference between your income and your expenses for your budget, and the difference between your income and your expenses based on the actual amounts. This graph here shows you your budget expense distribution. So everything else that is not income would show up as a breakdown, and the total amount shows up right here in the middle. The next graph is your actual expense distributions. This is what shows up when you start putting in the actual amounts that you spent for the month. The graph right here compares all of your expected to all of your actual. So what you expected your income to be, what you actually earn, what you expected your savings to be, what you actually earn, etc. This section right here is to enter some monthly financial goals so you can keep track of it. So if you want to save $500 for emergency funds, or you want to pay off some credit card debt, enter your goals here. And at the end of the month, you can go ahead and cross them off if you have completed them, or not. If you haven't completed them, you could always copy them and move them forward to the next month. All right, so right here we have the financial summary. This amount comes from what we entered in the setup tabs. The actual amount will come from what you enter into your template, and I will show you how to do that shortly. And here's the total amount of expenses. This total is the total amount of expenses. Obviously doesn't include your income. And the leftover is your income minus your expenses. So essentially this number minus this number. Now this leftover number is what shows up here. When you're doing your budget, you want to keep these numbers in mind. Take a look at the numbers to make sure they're not negative. If they're negative, they show up as red. If you're in the positive, they show up as green. The next section is a summary of your income subcategories. These amounts, again, will be pulled automatically from your setup tab. These amounts are what you would be entering manually every month. You will not enter the amount here. This is summarized from the transactions area, which I will go over shortly. The rest of the sections are set up similar. So you have your fixed bills that show up here. Your budgeted amount shows up here. The actual amount shows up here. All of this is automatic. The only thing that you will be editing every month is your monthly financial goal, making sure you have the right month selected here. And then when you want to enter your transaction, you're going to go all the way down here that says transactions. You're going to enter the date, the subcategory, the amount, and then the category automatically shows up here, and then you can add any notes you want. So let's go over one example. Let's say I received some money from additional income. Go ahead and double click here. Select the date, so January 8th. Now here is where all of the drop downs would show up. So these are all of your subcategories together. It can be a long list, but it's really easy to use. You don't have to scroll through this to select what you need. Go ahead and just type into that cell. So if I want to do salary, type SAL, it shows up. Or maybe I want to put in tips, so I can just type TIP and it shows up. So you don't have to use this drop down and scroll through to find what you want. Just type in the name of the transaction and it gives you a shorter list to select from. And then go ahead and enter the amount. So in this case, let's say it's $50. And as you can see here, the category shows up automatically. So you don't have to do anything here. By the way, this cell has this different light color because it does contain a formula. The same applies to this cell right here and this cell right here. You don't want to touch them. And these are giving you a clue that these places contain formulas. You don't want to edit, delete, or touch anything in these areas. There are some areas that are white color that still have formulas. So essentially, if you try to delete a formula by mistake, I have built in some safety mechanisms. So right here, you can see there's a formula here. And if I try to delete this formula, I'm going to get this pop-up message. So you do have this safety mechanism built into the template for you. The other thing I want to show you is that you can add multiple amounts at the same time. So let's say January 15th, you receive tips again. So I'm just going to type tips as well. And then this time it's $100. Just go ahead and type that. Okay, it will automatically summarize all of your tips. So it doesn't really matter how you decide to enter it. If you do decide to enter it one by one or together, the template will still work fine. And lastly, you have a space here that you can enter a note related to a specific transaction. And right here, we have another graph that shows you the breakdown of categories. For this graph to work, go ahead and select the category that you want to see the breakdown of. So right now, the category fixed bill is selected, and you can see all of these subcategories, the amounts, and the percentage. If I want to see income breakdown, go ahead and select income, and it shows you the breakdown. Variable expenses, it shows you the breakdown. Right here is reserved for due date. So if you entered in a due date, it shows up automatically based on the month that has been selected here. So if I were to change this to March, for example, the due dates change to the appropriate due dates in March. The rest of the tabs work exactly the same. Just make sure that when you select the next tab, the right month is selected. The month here has to match the month name here, and you're good to go. Switching over to the annual summary table, this gives you the summary of all of the amount you've entered for the entire template. In this demo copy, I have transactions entered from January all the way through December, which is why it's completely filled out. If I were to take February out, for example, so let's delete all of these transactions for February. When I go back to the annual summary table, you can see right here is blank. The only thing that would show up when you start using this template is your budget. It would always show up because your budget gets pulled in from your setup tab. And then as you enter each month's information in its own tab, it shows up right here. This first table is a summary table. So it takes all of your categories and summarizes it from January through December with the total amounts and the percentages. The rest of the tables are the individual categories, also summarized from January through December. Each of them would have the budget amount to start with, so you can compare your budget amount with how much you're actually spending or earning that month. So you can see all of the subcategories, the amounts, the total, and the percentages. The same applies to savings, investments, subscriptions, debt, variable bills, and your fixed bills. And finally, we have the annual summary dashboard. Right at the top here, you can see your total income for the entire year. The leftover represents the difference between your income and all the other categories. Okay, so your savings, investment, fixed bills, etc. If you add all these amounts up and you subtract it from your income, that's what's left over. Ideally, it should be zero, because if you have any left over, it should go into your savings. Next, we have our income category for the entire year. So summary of the income subcategories, the amounts and the percentages. Same for savings, investments, fixed bills. And on the other side, we have debts, subscriptions, and variable expenses. And then right here, we have an annual summary. So the total amount of money earned, and you can see that this represents the amount up here. Here we have the breakdown, savings breakdown, debt breakdown. This summarizes all of your entries for each category for the entire template. So everything that you have entered in each individual tab gets pulled into the annual summary dashboard. And then all the way at the bottom, we have two graphs. So let's say you want to see your income distribution from January through December. All you have to do is click on this drop down, select income, and then you can see that information right here. Savings, fixed bills. On the other side, it's a very similar graph, but this is where you would see specific examples. So if you want to see how much you earn for tips for the entire year, go ahead and type tips. It shows up here. Select that, and you can see the distribution here. Let's say rent. It shows up here. Let's do one more. Credit card. It shows up here. That way you can see the distribution of your income or expenses for a specific subcategory or for the entire category. All right, so that brings me to the end of this walkthrough video. One last thing before we wrap up this tutorial. This template does come with multiple currencies. I only showed you the example with the dollar version, but there are multiple currencies included. If you don't see your currency, go ahead and send me a message and I'll be happy to create one specifically for you. Like I said before, my contact information can be found here. You can contact me directly through my website or through Etsy. If you have not purchased this template, I will leave links in the description box so you can go ahead and grab your copy. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.